Sierra cries in tears as Bambi reveals her secrets to Amy in Season 13, Episode 1. At the beginning of Season 13, Episode 1, viewers were taken on an emotional roller coaster ride as the complicated relationships between Sierra, Bambi, and Amy became the main focus of the episode. What started as an apparently fun get-together with friends rapidly turned into a stressful dispute that left Sierra in tears. The episode, which was called Sierra's Cry in Tears After Bambi Opens Her Secrets in Front of Amy, gave viewers a look at the weaknesses of each character and demonstrated the fragile equilibrium between trust, betrayal, and the burden of secrets that have been kept for a long time. The stage is set. The episode starts in a peaceful, high-end cafe where Sierra, Bambi, and Amy had planned to meet for a relaxed get-together. Over the years, the three women had developed an unexpected relationship, even though they had very different personalities. Sierra, who was shy and introspective, frequently felt conflicted between her wish to keep things light and her more serious emotional issues. Bambi, on the other hand, was known for being brash, having a sharp wit, and speaking her mind without thinking about the implications. Amy, who was the mediator of the group, constantly attempted to keep the peace and provide support, even if it meant sacrificing her own mental well-being. As the scenario progressed, the audience could feel a sense of tension in the air. Sierra seemed more distant than she normally did, and it was obvious that she was obsessed with something that she was attempting to keep secret. Bambi, as acute as usual, picked up on her friend's melancholy and decided that it was time to face it head-on. "See, you haven't said anything all morning," Bambi made a teasing comment with a smile, but her eyes revealed that she was much more curious than she was letting on. "Are you thinking about something?" Sierra's eyes moved back and forth between Bambi and Amy in a timid manner, not knowing how much information to share. She had always placed a high importance on her privacy and had a propensity to keep her feelings to herself, but this time was different. She had a nagging feeling that it was time to face the issue, and she couldn't get rid of it. Sierra's voice was barely above a whisper as she replied, "I have just been dealing with some stuff, nothing of significance." Amy, who was always kind, leaned in and gave a friendly grin. "Sierra, you are aware that you can discuss anything with us. We are here to support you." That was the moment when the conversation began to change. Bambi narrowed her eyes as she observed Sierra, feeling that her buddy was not being completely honest. It was obvious that she was not going to let this time go by without investigating further, as she had never been the type to overlook things. Bambi's voice took on a more serious tone as she urged, "Come on, see, we're not going to allow you to keep everything inside. We can deal with it together, no matter what it is." Sierra was clearly uncomfortable, and for a while it looked like she may just ignore it. But then, something inside her broke. It felt as though all of the emotional burden she had been carrying for such a long time had finally reached a breaking point. She took a long breath before speaking, her cheeks flushed with a combination of rage and exasperation. "Okay," she responded, her voice sounding irritated. "Are you curious about what is happening? I will inform you." As soon as Sierra began to speak, it became obvious that she was keeping a lot of things to herself that she was not ready to acknowledge. She talked about a betrayal that had been bothering her for months. This treachery had implications that extended beyond her and touched the people around her. She disclosed that she had uncovered a horrible secret about someone who was dear to her. This person had deceived her and exploited her in ways that she could not have imagined. Bambi's attitude changed from one of interest to one of disbelief as Sierra narrated the circumstances. This discovery was more than she had ever expected, even though she had always taken pride in her ability to read people. Amy was also surprised, and her expression reflected a combination of amazement and worry as she thought about the significance of what Sierra had said. However, it was not only the secret itself that shocked them, it was also the fact that Sierra had managed to keep it a secret for such a long time. Sierra was the kind of person who always took on the problems of others and helped her friends without expecting anything in return. However, at this point, she was compelled to face her own suffering as well as the suffering of the people she cared about. Bambi's choice. Following Sierra's admission, there was a moment of stillness that was filled with anxiety. The tie between the three ladies had changed, and the cornerstone of their friendship was being put to the test. Bambi, in particular, found it difficult to come to terms with the fact that the person she had known as Sierra was now seated in front of her, defenseless and shattered. However, when Bambi gazed at Sierra, something inside her suddenly made sense. She understood that Sierra required assistance more than anything else, not criticism or judgment. Bambi had always been fast to react, but now she saw that the problem needed to be handled differently. She was aware that her friend was dealing with something that was far bigger than her own problems, and she realized that it was time for her to take action in a way that she had never done before. "I had no idea," Bambi remarked quietly, her voice filled with both sympathy and remorse. "I apologize, Sierra. I was unaware." Sierra's eyes were filled with tears, and for a moment it looked like the dam had finally burst. Her voice shook as she muttered, "I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to put my problems on anyone else." Finally, Amy, who had been sitting silently during the conversation, decided to say something. "Sierra, you are not a burden. We consider you a friend and we care about you, regardless of the situation." Sierra's chest felt constricted as all of the feelings she had been keeping inside for so long came rushing out. She had always worried that her vulnerability would cause people to distance themselves from her, but in this moment, her friends were providing her with the one thing she had needed the most: acceptance. Bambi and Amy went closer to Sierra when the tears started to fall, trying to soothe her in the only way they knew how. Bambi put her arm around Sierra's shoulders to comfort her, while Amy held her hand gently. Their presence was sufficient to communicate their support. They did not need to use words. However, just as Sierra was beginning to feel comforted by the warmth of her friends, Bambi revealed a shocking piece of information that would alter the trajectory of their relationship for good. "The secret is revealed." Bambi's voice was firm, but it had a hint of shame in it when she replied, "Sierra, you're not the only one who has secrets. I have also been hiding something from you." Sierra's eyes were filled with tears as she stared at Bambi. Her expression was a combination of confusion and fear. "What are you trying to say?" Bambi took a deep breath to help herself find the strength to tell the truth. "I was aware of your secret, the one you've been keeping for so long. However, I kept quiet since I didn't want to cause you any pain. I didn't want to make the situation any more difficult." Sierra's mind was having a hard time processing the discovery, and the room appeared to be spinning. "Did you know? In what way? Why didn't you inform me?" Bambi's face was one of genuine remorse, and her gaze softened. "I didn't know how to say it to you. I was worried that you would dislike me for not speaking up sooner." As Sierra attempted to understand what was happening, she felt a tightness in her chest. "Bambi, have you been keeping this a secret from me all this time?" Bambi's eyes were full of sadness as she nodded. "I had no intention of breaking your trust. I believed that if I remained silent, everything would resolve itself. However, I now realize that I was mistaken." Sierra felt her heart hurting as she tried to make sense of her friend's complicated behavior. The emotional burden of the moment was too much for her to endure. This revelation completely broke all she thought she knew about Bambi and their friendship, even though she had always prided herself on being competent at judging people's character. Sierra's voice was barely above a whisper when she said, "I don't know if I can forgive you. You ought to have been honest with me." For the first time in the show, the viewers saw Bambi's face fall, revealing the character's raw fragility. Up until that point, Bambi had always appeared to be confident and unyielding. "See, I know I made a mistake. I was unsure of how to resolve the issue. I wanted to keep you around." As Sierra wiped away her tears and got up from the table, the quiet that followed was so loud that it was almost unbearable. Her voice was tight as she said, "I need some time to think. I'm not sure if I can deal with all of this at the moment." Bambi and Amy sat in silence as Sierra walked away from the table. Both of them understood that the journey ahead would be long and challenging. The burden of their acts was palpable in the air, and their friendship had been permanently altered. Final thoughts. The first episode of the 13th season laid the foundation for a profound investigation of friendship, trust, and the complexity of human emotions. Sierra's tears, Bambi's confession, and Amy's unflinching support all demonstrated how fragile relationships can be and how secrets may break even the greatest friendships when they are not addressed out. At the end of the episode, the audience was left wondering what the future might bring for the three women. Is it possible that Sierra would forgive Bambi for holding the secret? Is it possible for their friendship to endure this betrayal? And most crucially, would they all be able to learn how to embrace vulnerability and rebuild the trust that had been broken? The trip was far from finished, and with the emotional stakes higher than ever, fans were left eagerly anticipating the next chapter in this fascinating narrative of love, grief, and redemption.